desperate counterattack by Satanic Mafia failing on all fronts as human liberation nears. We are witnessing desperate attempts around the world by Satan's worshipping Khazarian Mafia to reserve recent defeats and remain in power. However, these efforts are failing on all fronts, and more prominent Satanists are disappearing. The fiercest battles are raging in Washington, D.C., where the Satanists are pushing the Russian Did story to remove Attorney General Jeff Sessions and prevent arrest of child-killing politicians. Pentagon sources confirm that over 1,500 pedophiles have been arrested since Donald Trump took office as President of the United States, and that a grand jury is preparing indictment against a whole swath of DC and New York establishment figures. Another sign that this have really begun to change is that legal action has now begun against the private sector prison slave camps being run in the U.S. The counterattack by the Satanists in the U.S. is being orchestrated by the Rothschilds and the Bush-Clinton Mafia, who have unleashed their top servants like former President Barack Obama and Amazon Jeff Bezos against the Trump regime. Last week, Obama announced he was setting up an anti-Trump headquarters with advisor Valeria Jarrett 2 miles from the White House. This move was followed by Trump tweets accusing Bad a sick guy Obama of illegally wiretaping him. Our advice to House Slave Obama is to not risk his life and liberty on behalf of his Rothschild slave masters. Another Rothschild house slave, Loretta Lynch, Obama Attorney General, called for marching, blood and death on the street. Our advice to African Americans is to not let this house slave fool you into protesting on behalf of Satan-worshipping slave driver. A sign of the intensity of the battle now raging was seen when Bezos offered child torturer and former Clinton campaign manager John Podesta a job with his Washington Post propaganda machine. Podesta was also given $600 million war chest for the Washington Post by the rogue Bush CIA for propaganda purposes. And yet, immediately after Bezos announces this, Amazon.com servers came under heavy, sustained attack. It is unlikely Bezos himself will survive long, CIA and Pentagon sources say. A clear sign the Satanists have lost control of the American people can be seen in the impotence of their once dominant corporate propaganda apparatus. Despite surveys showing that 88% of heavy corporate media coverage of Trump was negative since he took office, polls show that 79% of Americans viewed his speech last week before the joint houses of Congress favorably. Take a look at House Democratic Party leader Nancy Pelosi's expressions during Trump's speech. To me, it looks like someone or some entity in mortal fear. Perhaps the most senior Nazi faction Satanist who needs to be taken down ASAP is Microsoft's Bill Gates. Bill Gates is constructing a giant underground bunker complex in Karuizawa, Japan, according to Japanese military intelligence. Gates is working with his top Japanese servants, Yoshi son of SoftBank and Yasuyuki Nambu of the Persona Group. Sons SoftBanks have taken over the Fortress Investment Group. That means he now controls the Musashi engineering that rigs Japan's elections. Sons, of course, is just a senior Rothschild servant in Japan. Agents working for the French branch of the Rothschild family, David, wanted by the police for fraud, and Benjamin, accusing of killing Primus. The Rothschild recently tried to lure this writer to trap at Nambu's Akasaka, Tokyo headquarters. Nambu and Son are now being targeted by right-wingers close to the emperor, Japanese right-wing sources say. The Rothschild families were ultimately responsible for the March 11, 2011 tsunami and nuclear terror attack, known as 3/11 here, against Japan, and are desperately trying to keep their servants in power here so as to prevent retribution for that mass murder incident. However, the Rothschilds have already lost that battle and their Japan network is being dismantled. Many readers asked me why I included Dalai Lama's name in the list of satanic subcontractors. Here, in the interest of disclosure, I must admit that I have a personal grudge against the Dalai Lama. A North Korean female agent was sent by him and the Satan worshipper to ruin my life. Instead, she fell in love with me and got pregnant with our child. When she was 5 months pregnant, the Nepali import store where she worked sent her to Nepal on a mission to buy goods for the store. When she got there, she was drugged and woke up in hospital, no longer pregnant. The owner of the store said his father, who works for the Dalai Lama, did this on the Dalai Lama's orders. In other words, this so-called holy man is a child murderer. After this, the girlfriend went to the Japanese police with false report that I was taking drugs and being abusive. When I confronted her with this, she told me that her family was being threatened with murder and if she did not do this. So that's why I have a personal grudge against the Dalai Lama. I have also looked into his eyes and I can tell you he is deeply evil. He will soon die and so will his soul. He will never be reincarnated again for all eternity. In any case, following Bill Gates' recent veiled threat to kill over 30 million people, there have been multiple reports of biological warfare agents being spread out over the world. As military intelligence say, Tokyo itself has been under heavy-duty chemtrail and radioactive poison attack following the Gates statements. Certainly everyone knows, including myself, has been coughing heavily recently. However, the attacks against Tokyo have now dissipated and no deaths have resulted. The Chinese and the Indian governments are also saying biological warfare agents are being used against them. While so terrifying is U.S. Navy intelligence and its reports are often up to 90% is information, the following report claiming biowarfare attacks around the world is probably true. What is not true is the talk of mass death because the biowarfare agents have been rendered impotent. Bill Gates is now being actively hunted down, and the U.S. military has been advised by the White Dragon Society to seize his Karuizawa bunker ASAP. Gates' properties in the U.S. also need to be seized ASAP. Bill Gates' mansion near Seattle, Washington, has a room filled with skeletons and dedicated to the worship of death, according to high-tech oligarch who has visited there. Other senior Satanists, recognizing that the gig is up, are trying to flee. King Salman of Saudi Arabia has booked 5-star luxury hotels in Bali, Indonesia, for his entourage, including 20 princes. Salman is going to be asking for protection from Indonesia, Malaysia, and China, but will not get it, CIA sources say. The reason Salman has fled, Pentagon sources say, is that the campaign against Daesh. Note to reader, we have decided not to insult the goddess of ISIS any further by associating her name with this band of Satanist terrorists, has extended to Yemen. Saudis, in cooperation with the French oil giant Total, have been breaking international law by stealing 65% of Yemen's oil. Another Satanist seeking shelter is Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Netanyahu has asked Russian President Vladimir Putin for protection after Israel was threatened with destruction of all its nuclear facilities if it did not act against the Satanist Russian FSB, and other sources say. This protection will not be granted, the sources say. The U.S. art trader John McCain sought protection from Turkey's President Erdogan and will also not get it, Pentagon sources say. Humanity will soon be free.